Guys, we are here at the beginning of Unit 5 or Module 5 with Lesson 1, and we are going to tackle fractions throughout this module. It's a longer module, I think longer than any of the ones we've had so far, and I'm going to warn you up front, there's a lot of vocabulary and a lot of the stuff may be new to you. So we'll take it slow, we'll review things often, and be sure to ask a lot of questions as we go to ensure that you're understanding everything that we're doing. I'm going to get started with reviewing some of that vocabulary you're going to hear a lot in this module, starting in this lesson. But again, some of it happens later on, but I think it's important that we start early and talk about some of the words you're going to be hearing. So let's talk about some of that first, and then we'll take a look at some sample problems. We're going to break out the whiteboard, which we haven't used here in quite some time. And let's talk about some of the things you're going to hear. First of all, a fraction. Oops, told you I haven't used this in a while. It's going to be a little rusty. So a fraction, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what is that? It's a fraction is a part of a whole. So for example, if I had, let's do it this way. A pizza, and I split it into 2 parts. See if I can get that right in the middle. 2 equal parts, right? That's important. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I ate half and I gave half to somebody else. Then I would have eaten 1 out of 2 parts. I did 1 out of 2, 1/2. All right, so I'll shade in half for you. I ate that part. That was my part. Then I would have eaten 1 out of 2, 1/2. And that's how you write a fraction, with a numerator, a line, and a denominator. So let's talk about that fraction again. 1/2. That thing on top, that thing, that's called the numerator. This thing down here on the bottom, that's called the denominator. So the numerator is like the number of things you're talking about, like the number of parts of the whole you're talking about. And the denominator is how many parts make up one whole. So let's look back at that pizza here. I'll go back a slide here. So 1 is like the number that I had, like the pieces that I had, 1 out of 2. 2 being the number of pieces that make up one whole. Every whole pizza has 2 halves, right? So I ate 1 out of a possible 2 in this case. And so the numerator is 1 and the denominator is 2. So those are words you're going to hear a lot as well. You're also going to hear the word unit fraction. You're going to hear that starting today. A unit fraction is any fraction like 1/2 where the numerator is 1. So let me draw like a rectangle for you, right? And I might have, this might be split into fourths, meaning it's split into 4 equal sections, right? If I say to like highlight the unit fraction, or that would be like 1 out of the 4 things. So the unit fraction here is 1/4. I'm just looking at how, like if I have 1 of the parts out of all of them, how many do I have? In this case, I have 1/4. So you'll see that as well. So those are the major ones to get us going. Oh, sorry, there's one more. Partition. Partition. To partition means to split up into equal groups, or it means to split up, but in this case, to split up into equal groups. Split into equal parts. That's what it's going to mean for our purposes here in 3rd grade, is to split something into equal parts. So if I say to partition this shape into equal parts, into I don't know, 4 equal parts, you'd say, okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I partitioned it. I split it up into 4 equal parts. And so that's what that means anytime you hear it. So we have partition, we have numerator and denominator, meaning the top number being the numerator, the bottom number being the denominator. And unit fraction is when you're talking about the numerator being 1, 1 out of however many you have in a whole. And then a fraction is just a part of a whole. In this case, in this drawing, 1/2. So those are the major vocabulary words, and we're going to talk about those over and over and over. You're going to hear them in every lesson that we do. So I think it's important that we start right away getting familiar with that vocabulary. All right, with that done, let's go ahead and switch screens here. And we are going to take a look at the problem set, which you've already had a chance to do. But now we are going to review it to make sure that you're understanding. So a beaker, so like a container, it's considered full when the liquid reaches the fill line showed near the top. So that line right there. Estimate the amount of water the beaker in the beaker by shading and drawing as indicated. So the first one's done for you. 1/2 means like they split this into 2 parts because halves are 2 parts, and 1/2 is full and 1/2 is empty. So fourths, I would start by drawing a half. So that's 2 parts, and then I'm going to split this into each half. I'm going to split into 2 more parts. So now I have, and this is my full line right there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 equal parts. So, but it's saying I need 1 out of 4 shaded. So I would just shade in 1 out of 4. And then for thirds, I would say this whole thing, and I would estimate like there and there. I made about equal parts, right? And I would shade in 1/3. So it didn't ask you to do this, but I would also, you could write 1/2, 1/4, and 1/3. And there you go. You've written 3 unit fractions there: 1/2, 1/4, and 1/3. Right. So the tricky part is estimating to draw approximately equal parts here. In reality, they need to be equal, but I understand that drawing them can be a little bit tricky. Let's move on to the next part. Juanita cuts her string cheese into equal pieces as shown, and the rectangles below. So each, there we go. Each rectangle here, each big rectangle, is representing 1 piece of string cheese, and where she's cutting it on the black lines there. In the blanks below, name the fraction of string cheese represented by the shaded part. So the numerator, the top number, is going to be the shaded portion. So in this case, 1 out of, whenever the way you read fractions is like the numerator out of the denominator, 1 out of however many. That you can think of it that way as well. So in this case, there are 3 total. So she has 1 out of 3 pieces, 1 out of a possible 3. A common mistake is for somebody to put 2 because they're thinking, well, the 1's already accounted for, and there's 1 gray piece and 2 white pieces. But that's not how you do these. She ate 1 out of a possible 3 because there are 3 altogether that she cut these into. 3 pieces she cut it into. Same process here for this one. The numerator is going to be 1. So we're dealing with unit fractions here. And then you think, how many altogether were there? How many make up a whole? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pieces make up a whole. And the shaded part represents 1 of those 6. So 1 out of 6, or 1/6. And lastly, we have 1 shaded part out of a possible 4. There are 4 things in the whole. 1 of them is shaded. So shaded total in the whole. All right, that's how we are determining our fraction here. Let's flip over and see what we have on the back here. So it says, in the space below, draw a small rectangle. Estimate to split into 2 equal parts. How many lines did you draw to make 2 equal parts? What is the name of the fractional unit? A lot of directions in there. So 1, draw a rectangle. 2, split it into 2 parts. 3, how many lines do you have to draw? And 4, what is the name of the fraction? There are 4 things in the directions there. So draw a small rectangle, split it. That's check. I did that part. Estimate to split it into 2 equal parts. I'm going to do it this way. Did that part. I had to draw one line. To split it into 2 parts would be a better sentence. But for the sake of time, I'm going to stop there. And the fractional unit is 1/2, right? 1 out of 2. Draw another small rectangle. Okay, I can do that easily enough. Split it into 3 equal parts. How many lines do you have to draw? Well, to split it into 3 equal parts, I have to draw 2 lines. Notice, to split it into 2 parts, I drew 1 line. To split it into 3 parts, I draw 2 lines. You have to draw 1 less line than the parts you're looking for in order to get those parts. So the fraction is 1/3, 1 out of 3. Again, the top number is always like how many are shaded in, or how many were eaten, or what, whatever. It can be posed a bunch of different ways, but the pieces we're talking about out of the total, 3 being the total in this case. And we had to draw 2 lines. And I'll do the part C here for you. They're just trying to prove a point about the number of lines you have to draw to get the right number of parts. We have a rectangle, and to get 4 parts, we have to draw 3 lines. We draw 1 less line than the number of parts we're looking for. And we shaded 1 out of the 4 boxes. We had to draw 3 lines, like I said. All right, each rectangle, whoa, that is all crooked. There we go. Each rectangle represents 1 sheet of paper. Estimate to show how you would cut the paper into fractional units as indicated below. So we have 9ths and 7ths. So I know for this one I have to draw 6 lines, and then for that one I have to draw 8 lines, because if I draw 6 lines, I'll end up with 7 pieces. If I draw 8 lines, I'll end up with 9 pieces. So I'm going to sort of like estimate these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not bad. Those are fairly even. And then these have to be even smaller because I have to fit in 8 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I end up with 9 parts. What did you notice? How many lines you have to draw? How many lines you think you'd have to draw to make a rectangle with 20 equal parts? Well, what I just told you is that you draw 1 less line than the number of parts you're looking to get. So if you're looking to get 20 parts, you draw 1 less line than that, which would be 19. So 19 lines. That right there, by the way, not an acceptable answer if you are doing this on your own. I expect a full sentence out of you guys. And the last part is Rochelle has a strip of wood 12 inches long. She cuts it into pieces that are each 6 inches long. What fraction of the wood is 1 piece? Use your yellow strip. We don't have the yellow strip with us, so we'll just draw it. So that's my, the whole thing is 12 inches. I'm going to split it into 6 inches and 6 inches. One of the 2 pieces, right, is 6 inches long. It's 1/2 of the whole piece of wood. 6 plus 6 is 12. So I know I only need 2 pieces. So my total is 2 pieces, and I'm only talking about one of them right now. One last important note before I leave you is that whenever you're doing fractions, I think I said this earlier, but the parts of the whole need to be even. We can't have a situation where you have like here, let me use the whiteboard again and show you. When you divide up a shape, you cannot have a scenario where you're like, oh, look, I split it into 2 pieces. This is 1/2. Well, you guys know, like, think about this. If somebody was giving you half of a candy bar and they only give you this much and they took that much, would you be upset? Yeah, of course you would. They didn't give you half. Like, they took way more than half because the pieces are not even. To be even, they would need to be split right down the middle. So if you're splitting into halves, then both sides have to be equal. If you're splitting into fourths, that was a bad example because I did not split them evenly. That's slightly better. If you're splitting into eighths, they have to be 8 even pieces. Tenths, they have to be 10 even pieces, and so on and so forth. So that's one important point that we'll consider as we move through this unit. All right, guys, we're getting off to a good start with fractions, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on some stuff that's new and exciting for you.